kind of talks about himself personally. It was a really good piece on him to open up, and I read that. That was like one of my summer read books. I read it this summer. I mean, it came out like 3 years ago. But Jay-Z's Decoded was a very nice, intense look at, once again, like that, kind of like A Hope in the Unseen, and like Man's Search for Meaning, where you have a kid from Brooklyn who's dirt poor, he's selling drugs. I mean, he's pretty good at it. He doesn't want to do it. He picks up rapping. He's pretty good in rapping, but in the meantime, he's like, this isn't a career. People don't live off rap. And look where it takes him. You know what I mean? He follows his heart. He follows his dreams.
Yeah.
And that book was really, and it's not too like super powerful. You know what I mean? But it's a very basic kind of like step-by-step guide to see where his art took him.
Yeah. Well, and again, right? There's this whole notion of being able to see yourself, right? I mean, I don't want to say that black boys and girls need to only read books with black boys and girls or white children. Like I don't say that, and I don't believe it. Right. But yet at the same time, there is this idea that if I'm picking up this book and I'm thinking about, well, how does somebody get to where they are? If I'm someone who's connected with Jay-Z's music, if I'm someone who grew up in Brooklyn, if I'm someone who felt like I had to struggle, if any of those characteristics among many others that he's got to present in his life as far as how he made it, suddenly it presents this reality, right? Like it feels like a thing that we can do. And it's not a thing that we can do, it feels like a thing that we can relate to because we see it happening.
Definitely, man. And Jay-Z, at this point, little Becky from Valley Glen is in tune with Jay-Z, just how little Omar is in North Philly. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So he's worldwide.
Yeah, have you read that? Because I haven't read that. I gotta pick it up. And in fact, I haven't read the Viktor Frankl book either. So I'm putting both of these on my Amazon queue.
Right. Yeah.
But
Viktor Frankl, yes.
You know what it reminds me of is, have you read One Day It All Makes Sense, the Common biography?
Dude, not in its entirety, but yeah, I got like halfway through it.
Yeah, that was one that really hit me too, because you're looking at a man who had what he needed in school, right? Like he didn't have to hustle, right? Like his story is not about the game, if you will.
Right.
His story is about trying to figure out who he is when everybody else around him
is broken.
The game.
Right. Yeah, he had the home, he had the family, he had the good examples, but everything outside of him was broken.
Right.
Yeah. I gotta like pick that up and finish that one. But yeah, I remember when it came out, like I got it from the library and kind of just and sped read it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just want to take the time out, and you can do the same. I just want to shout out a couple of books that are just classics, and they helped me. I want to say the autobiography of Malcolm X is definitely one of those books that pretty much got me into reading. That book right there. Also, I wanna give a nod to what they didn't teach you in history. I gotta actually find the author of that book. And that book is simply just an ode to ancient African mathematics and how that is a missing piece of history. And before this podcast is over, I'm gonna find the author to that book. I got it over here on my bookshelves. I'm about to go grab it. And last but not least, I want to add. I'm looking here on my list, man. I got a ton of stuff like you do. I'll throw in the Dhammapada, and that's actually the Bible for Buddhists. And I read that. It was actually like a required read in some undergraduate class I had. And I don't know how you are, Dave, but like when I'm required to read something, I'm like reading it to like the last day is due.
Oh yeah.
And then so the class is over with, and then like as soon as the class is over with, now I'm like reading the book all day long when I don't have when I'm not required to read it. Now I'm digging all through it. So
you gotta run through it.
Yeah, exactly. So the Dharmapada, man, is another book that's a really great read. It's a very, a lot of people like to put Buddhism in the faction of a religion. I say it's a way of life, and that book is a nice read on just being sensual with yourself and meditation, and just being one with the forces around you, man. That's an easy read too. I mean, it's a small little book, but I'll let you run off some too, Dave.
It's a lot, yeah. So I think probably one of my favorite reads, and some of this too is poetry, is The Ways of White Folks by Langston Hughes. This book was put in my hands by my mother when I was young, and it took me a long time to actually pick it up and read it and really kind of take stock in the lessons that he's trying to basically put out there, right? I mean, there's a whole lot because he's basically playing off of the souls of he's basically playing off of the souls of black folk, right? Like the Boyta's published piece, and it took me a long time to really be able to kind of see a parallel there, but that was just something that was so important for my mother to have me read, because she was familiar with this when she was young. It was put in her hands by her mother. I think another good one is Giovanni's Room, by James Baldwin. Probably anything by James Baldwin, really. But James Baldwin, I think, is one of the most prolific. And I don't know if he gets the credit that he deserves. Maybe he does, and I'm not reading in the right places. But he's one of the most prolific writers that I have come to pass with. I mean, as a gay black man in the '60s, just putting himself out there with zero room in his heart for shame. I think that's really powerful. And another one, a little bit more contemporary, is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Are you familiar with this one?
The last two you read, I am.
Go ahead.
Now man. First of all, man, for the internets, man, you just named some heavy hitters, man. James Baldwin and Langston Hughes, probably like greatest authors in the last 50, 60 years, man. We got to do a podcast just on that, just on authors.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Just go ahead and just sit there and do a little reading.
Exactly.
But I think with some of the other stuff, though, Perks of Being a Wallflower came out late 90s. Stephen Chbosky. What I think is really cool about this book, first off, it's like 170 pages, and if you are anything over the age of like 13, you can just plow through it. It's a series of sort of, one could call them journal entries, written by this boy in Pittsburgh when he was in 9th, going into 10th grade. And what I really love about that is that it taps into sort of like this emotional presence that I think we sometimes ignore with our young men. This sort of silencing of emotion that we do, it brings really present some of what's going on there. And what it did for me was definitely reminded me of the time when I also found myself thinking of a lot of different things, right? And I don't know that I identify fully with all of the experiences that the main character Charlie has. But one thing that I do know I recognize was just trying to figure out how the world works when you're a teenager and not really sure where to go to get those cues, to get those influences. And so many of our young people out there are turning to all of the, I'm not going to say wrong places, but they're turning to so many places that are not giving them the answers that are helpful. They're just giving them the answers that help them get by.
Right.
And so I think the Perks of Being a Wallflower really does touch base on what that's like. And that's a book I recommend to so many people. I just kind of put it in their hands. So yeah, dude, there's a lot out there, right? I mean, we could look at like the poem Myself by Edgar Guest, right? Really, what does it mean to kind of stand up straight and feel strong about yourself? Or It's by Rudyard Kipling, right? I think that the world out there is filled with so many good authors who can speak to different people's stories. that I don't know, man. I think this I wouldn't even call myself an expert. I'm just somebody who tries to pick up what I can. So
same, man, same. Yeah. So I'll pose. This is a curveball. You know, just throw it in here for your conversation's sake. Do you think that you think technology is kind of hampering, you know, the skill of reading, or do you think it's kind of enhanced it?
Oh man, such a good question. It's interesting, and I think part of it is age, right? So if I were to look at my own experience, I read way more now with technology in my life than I did before technology existed, but the two are not correlated.
Okay, right.
Right, so I don't use a Kindle. In fact, I go into used bookstores. I pick up a book. I smell the book. I like hold it. I have some sort of like deep symbiotic relationship with the words on the page. I don't know, something really crazy happens. But I can't read on a Kindle or a Nook or any of that.
Really?
Because for me, the act of reading is about being with the book, and there's some loose research out there that I've come across that says it's more challenging to process the words of a story when you're simultaneously processing the use of technology. So I like to think I'm profound in that way. Maybe that's the reason. Who knows? Maybe I just don't like carrying a Kindle. But yeah, I think that technology makes reading more accessible, right? I think technology is a fantastic paradox in our world, right? The iPhone makes life so much more simple, yet it makes things so much more complicated. The internet does the same thing. I don't know if you remember going and having to actually open up the books of an open up the pages of an encyclopedia. I know when we finally moved out of my parents' house, all the encyclopedias that we had, you get as a pathmark, and like every week you pick up like the next edition of the encyclopedia because that was our internet.
Right. Yeah.
But they were so bulky and tough to process that like it didn't make me want to read or find information more. I think that technology allows me and other people the ability to gain information faster, but what we do with that information, right? Like if I'm scrolling through and I see the title of a book on my screen, that's probably going to make me more likely to want to pick up the book and read it than if I happen to gloss over it or hear it mentioned to me in short conversation. But I think that because information comes to us so quickly, we also look at it as being able to access what we want to know as opposed to what there is to know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
So for you, like, when the digital age cracked open, it was more so just because, like, you were 22, 23, and you were kind of just finding your zone and reading in general, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, okay, I got you. Yeah, for me, I mean, I do have a Kindle, and I like it. I enjoy it, but I recently haven't purchased anything on it in about a year, maybe like a year and a half, just because, I mean, I like the cover art to books, like, you've never been to my place, but anybody that's been to my place, my place is designed. I have books kind of just like sitting everywhere, like, and I have it as like art, you know what I mean? And like, and I like that sense of it, and I would definitely, take a book over technology. I mean, the Kindle was cool, like, just for like, when you're going on a plane, you get the Kindle, grab the Kindle, it's travel. It's a nice little travel thing with you. But I'm definitely with you. Like, the nod is definitely with the actual book, especially for little kids. Like, for children, a physical, man, it's nothing like that. Nothing like that.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, like being able to hold it. Yeah, because I think it also makes like technology. It's I don't know about you. I get distracted when I'm trying to read things or do things on my computer. I get distracted. You get the little Facebook notification comes up in the corner, or all of a sudden I'm like, oh well, let me just check my email real quick. Like being able to hold the book. I mean, and going back to what you were saying in the very beginning, being able to hold the book removes you from other stimuli, other things, and allows you to be with the book and nothing else. Mm-hmm. Which does for our brains something really nice to take away all of the other